Steve Sauceda. Did I
Yes.
say that right?
Yes.
Nice. Welcome to the iSigma On Air podcast. I am really glad you're here. So you are a speaker today at the executive luncheon. You're going to be a keynote on Tuesday morning, I think.
Correct.
So we wanted to have you in here for, the next 2-3 hours just to talk about stuff. So before we go anywhere, tell me who you are, what you're about. Tell me a little bit of your story before you're who you are today.
No, absolutely.
Give me your life. Give me your life in a nutshell.
Sure. It's a pleasure to be here with you and here in San Diego at iSigma. So my name is Steve Sauceda, born and raised in the state of New Mexico. As I kind of said today, oftentimes people don't realize that New Mexico is one of the 50 states, but we are. And so grew up in Hobbs, New Mexico, went from preschool through undergrad, all in Hobbs. And
So where is Hobbs?
southeastern corner of the state.
Okay, so if you're in, because Albuquerque's kind of north, right?
North Central, so go 5 hours southeast.
And then go east. And
Correct.
So which border are you close to?
Texas.
You're close to, okay, so that bottom right side.
Correct.
Got
In
it.
3
Okay,
minutes.
Hobbs.
Yep. In 3 minutes, I'm in Texas.
Oh, okay.
And so super.
Okay, so sorry to jump into your story, but I like to just make sure I know what's going on. So Hobbs, you grew up
Yes.
in Hobbs, you go to high school in Hobbs.
I did.
And what is Hobbs? Is Hobbs a big city? Is it 20 people and everybody knows your name?
As of today, it's about 53,000 people.
Okay.
So still a small town, but not 2 people.
Right.
And so where I live is Lee County, and it is the #1 oil producing county in America. Really? So more oil comes out of Lee County than any place in Texas, Pennsylvania, North Dakota, you name it. Number 1 in the country.
Okay, so you grow up there. Is there a story from your childhood that represents you and Hobbs in a unique way?
So possibly. So my dad, my father, grew up around the oil and gas industry. My parents moved there in 1979. I was born 2 years later. They came from the panhandle of Texas, the Amarillo, Texas area. And my dad joined the oil and gas industry. And so I have been around it my whole life. I have been around it by nature of the business. 80% of the people in Lee County in the Permian Basin work in the energy sector of some sorts. And so went to high school there, went to a 2-year junior college, and then went to a 4-year university to complete my bachelor's, and then started into work. So after I graduated with my bachelor's, my alma mater hired me back 9 months later to serve as the director of alumni services. And so I did that, and then about 18 months later, I got a promotion to the director of the annual fund, and I was only 22 and a half. So I was the lead fundraiser for the college.
Wow.
And so shortly after that, I worked at that university for almost 3 years. And then I was made aware that a new division at a college that I had gone to previously for 2 years was launching what would now be called workforce development, that it's not leading towards an academic degree, but short-term workforce training that leads into the workforce, credentials, micro-credentials. And so I was encouraged to apply and got the job. And so I started that job in January of 2007. And January of this year, I just completed my 19th year with the institution.
Okay, so 19 years with an institution, but the focus of this, so just let's go back a little bit. The focus of this whole area is getting a college students jobs. Give me
Not so much. The people that we serve age and range from 16 to 68.
Really?
So we're not dealing with people looking to get a formal degree.
Right.
We're talking people who want to become a Class A CDL driver, a lease operator, an automation tech, a CMA, an EMT. That doesn't require a 2-year degree and a 4-year degree.
It just requires knowing what steps to take or what courses, not necessarily a degree, but courses
Correct.
or training or apprenticeship kind of stuff?
Correct.
Got
So
it.
this focuses on short-term training. And so when I started, the division was only 3 months old. So I have literally been with it since it began.
Wow.
So I started in as a coordinator, was that for 9 years. Went back at the encouragement of my mentor, who unfortunately passed away a year ago. He stayed on me for 4 years. Steve, go get that master's. Steve, go get that master's. So finally it worked. And while I was working and doing all the other things, I went and got an MBA, got it done in 2 years. The college created a position for me and moved me up to director. And then I stayed in that role for 6 years. And then we had a lot of transition. And then I got bumped up to dean on my 39th birthday. I made it to dean of a college at age 39.
Of what college?
New Mexico Junior College in Hobbs, New Mexico.
And what? And that dean is for the whole college or for
that division of workforce development.
Interesting.
And then I served in that role for 2 months and then got promoted to interim vice president and was interim vice president for 6 months. And then in May of 2002, shortly after my 40th birthday, I became the vice president for workforce development, one of the youngest at the college. And so I have been doing that. And then I think we had mentioned off camera that when I was 12 years old, that was the first time I stood in front of a crowd to speak. So I got my start in church, in youth group. And so I got started in a youth group, and they saw that I had a passion for it and no fear to stand in front of a crowd. And so when I was 12, I actually got the invitation to go be the main speaker at another church across town for the main service. And was 12 years old. And so starting at 12, that kind of lit the fuse and kept going. But I didn't make it a professional business until late 2019 when I incorporated as an LLC to launch Steve Sauceda Communications. So between my work with New Mexico Junior College and Steve Sauceda Communications, I see the inside of a hotel more than I do my own home.
Yeah, I get that. So, okay, let's go back into workforce development because I think this is a really interesting topic.
Sure.
Because you've seen the underbelly of that, both from an educational side, but also probably the results of that.
Correct.
So, the world is fundamentally changing. We know that.
Yes.
I mean, I think people are the same, but we're living in new, bizarre, strange, interesting times. What are you seeing as you try and help people move into the workforce in a world that seems fundamentally unstable in terms of what work to do?
Sure.
What are you seeing there? What are you doing? What are you encouraging people with?
Absolutely. I love that question. What I have found is people are gravitating more towards workforce development in the higher education side more than they are on the traditional academic side, at least in the region in which I work and in which I live. Because most of the time, you are dealing with people who hear the word college and cannot run far enough from you fast enough.
Right.
One, because perhaps that they didn't even complete college, maybe didn't get even a high school equivalency, but are saying, I need to provide for myself, I need to provide for my family. This is where my division, I feel, really shines. So it's like, I'm not trying to get you a degree. I'm trying to get you training and a certificate and a certification where you can go to work. Let me give you an example. So several years back, I did an interview with CNN International. We did about a 40-minute interview, and when it finally posted, when they published it, they took one snippet out of a 40-minute interview, which is not unusual. But I made the statement, and I did make the statement, it just wasn't all in context, that a Class A CDL is a golden ticket in the Permian Basin. That is a true statement. But my phone rang for 3 weeks because the article was picked up by every national news organization you can imagine, from Reuters to the AP, and my phone was ringing from Malibu, California to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, saying, can you make me a millionaire? And I said, what are you talking about? And they said, you said it's the golden ticket. And I said, well, first of all, you're going to have to come to Hobbs to get trained if you want our training. And then I said, and then you have to apply, to get the said job. But those that do stay in the Permian Basin with a 2-week training their starting pay is about $80,000 entry level. That's not even counting overtime.
Yeah.
And, being in the energy sector, what's kind of beautiful about workforce development is you're able to enter the workforce immediately with no student debt. Working in higher education for almost 23 years, the cost of a college education goes up 3.3% every single year. Every single year. So if you're a parent and you have a high school freshman, add over 13% to the total of what your student is looking at doing, and that's what you're looking at for incoming freshmen as a college student. So my thing is real simple to the public. I'm not anti-academia. I have 3 traditional degrees myself.
Right.
But the big push, when I went to high school, the big push was, what 4-year college are you going to go to? There was no discussion about vocational, career and technical workforce. If it was talked about and thought of as the afterthought, the B option, the C option of, well, I guess that those can't cut it academically, then I guess they'll go the vocational route. That is no longer the case.
No.
That is not the case in any way, shape, or form where vocational training, career and technical workforce development, my big push is, so I travel on two different things. I travel on behalf of higher education to advocate for workforce development, and then I travel on my own based on what I'm doing, professional and leadership development. It's always fun when those two worlds collide. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But my big push has been, because across higher education is an industry just like anyone else that has internal jargon. And if you're not a part of the industry, you don't understand what it's talking about. So oftentimes, colleges have referred to what I do as non-credit, right? You hear it as non-credit training.
Yep.
I have been on such a push the last 6 months, regionally, locally, and nationally, to join the wave of abolishing that term, because what else is defined by what you're not getting? So think about it. You are immediately defining it by what you're not getting, which is credit.
Right.
But not defining it by what you are getting, which is real world experience, a certification, and a certificate that allows you to go straight to work without any student debt. Right. And so we at the institution now refer to it as professional credit or workforce development. Because think about it. If I go stand in front of a room of high school juniors and seniors at an orientation of sorts with their parents who know nothing about higher ed, and the first thing out of my mouth is, hey, make sure your student signs up for a non-credit class.
Right.
So what do they say? So this doesn't count?
Right.
This doesn't matter? And so what's in a name? A name is everything.
Yeah.
And so higher education has changed tremendously. I have colleagues all over the country still telling me, Steve, I'm still paying on my student loans. Right. I'm in my 30s and I'm in my 40s. And unfortunately, sometimes the degree in which they got is not even the industry in which they're working.
Yeah, but they're still paying it off.
But they're still paying it off.
Okay, so I think it's hot because, interesting for me, a lot of my coaching clients who run businesses and have done very well for themselves have put their kids through
the traditional path.
Credit college.
Correct.
Where you get credits and you get it, and then you go another one, you get an MBA, and now those kids aren't getting jobs. Mm-hmm. Like there's no jobs for them.
Correct.
And what's interesting to me is the opportunity that seems profound to me is there are so many cool jobs that you could be doing if you weren't stuck in this way of thinking.
That's right.
Can you think a different way?
Can you think a different way? So, Tom, I'll do this with you. And for anyone who might hear this in posterity or view this later, I want to ask you 4 basic math questions. And I do this with my audiences when talking about this. So it's real simple. We won't need a calculator. 1 + 8?
9.
2 + 7?
9.
3 + 6?
9.
5 + 4?
9.
So I could do this for infinity, but what we just did, you just showed me 4 different ways to arrive at the same solution.
Yeah.
So traditional college might be the 8+1 student. The vocational might be the 7+2 student. There might be some that go join the military first and let Uncle Sam pay for it. That's their 3 + 6.
Yes.
Then there are those that say, I'm just going to go get a certificate and I'm going to go drive a truck. And my answer to all of my audiences and my question would be, which one is the right path? The one that is right for them.
Right.
And this is where higher ed institutions face the challenge with student services. When a student comes in saying, what do you want to do? A lot of times the answer is, I don't know. It's this emoji. Yeah. But oftentimes they just show them the credit side of the institution. They don't open it up to the vocational, career, and technical because there's still such a mindset and a stigma of that this is somehow less than if I don't have a 4-year degree hanging on my wall.
I did an interesting experiment. A close friend of mine, his friend's kid, was trying to decide between going down the medical path, getting a medical degree.
Sure.
And they did this series of spreadsheets to show them if they went and got their electrician license, and then they worked, and then the caveat was, within 10 years, hire 2 other electricians to work with you and start your own business. The long-term number on an electrician was exponential to the doctor. And we sort of have this traditional view that doctors make extraordinary amounts of money. But what was really interesting to watch was because when you invest, you get the residual effect. And
Correct.
what you got was a doctor, unless, of course, they had some unusual way to pay for it for free.
Sure.
But a lot of doctors end up with extraordinary amounts of debt.
They do.
And then they have to spend a lifetime sort of paying that off. And I don't know when the transition point, but these guys did. And I saw the spreadsheet and I was blown away by how, and it's not just about wealth. It's about what do you want to do with your life and who do you want to be. But
Correct.
it was really interesting for me to actually see evidence that the path of doing something like being an electrician has as much capability and prosperity as being a doctor. And I mean, in this room, like the room that you and I are a part of at this conference, I'm in it all the time, which is the shredding services, record storage.
Correct.
I mean, it's a very physical job.
It is.
It's not an MBA job. It's boxes on shelves, hauling.
Absolutely.
And what's so cool about it is it's as cool a industry as any other one is.
It is. And again, Tom, I want to be clear to all the listeners and the viewers. I still believe in higher ed in its conventional form. As you had mentioned, a medical professional and a doctor. And I've said this before. I don't want a doctor operating on me that said, you know what? I watched a couple of TikToks. I'm going to give it my best shot.
Correct.
If I ever needed legal advice or legal representation, I don't want someone to say, listen, I stayed up all night watching YouTube. I think we're good.
We got it. We got it. Like, I'll cut you. I'll rip that thing out of you, and you'll be good.
But I think that the beauty of what I get to do is because I have seen the value of what higher ed has opened doors for me.
Yeah.
My mentor once said to me, he said that degree, Steve, doesn't make you better than anybody, doesn't make you smarter than anybody. He said it's a calling card and he was absolutely right. Before I had my MBA, there were some people who wouldn't even give me the time of day, Tom. I had MBA put on my business cards and all of a sudden they were willing to have a conversation with me. Yeah. And like he told me before, it also shows an employer your capacity to complete something. Yeah. And so I've always been great with that. And then was able to parlay that into my own side business, which I believe one day in the not too distant future will be my full-time business there of leadership development. And oftentimes people ask me, how did I get my start there? And truly, 2018 going into 2019, I was in Nashville, Tennessee with my dad, and I had gone to a conference with him, met up with some friends, and kind of started asking that question of what's next? Where do I fit into this tapestry called life? With this skill set that I've been given, this gift that I've been given, how do I parlay it into something fantastic? One of our speakers today said, you can be good at something and taken and paid well at the same time. And I think that's basically where I was. And I hope this helps somebody who's whatever it is that they're looking to launch. If they wanted to be a public speaker, whatever it is, I think one of the things that paralyzed me, Tom, was this internal question. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to start. How do I start? What do I do? And I was listening to a podcast of a communicator that I enjoy a great deal listening to. He said, some of you listening to this right now have a dream in your heart and you keep saying, what do I do? And man, I turned that volume up in my car because I was like, this is for me. And this is a statement that launched me in my own business. He said, if you would do what you know what to do. If you would do what you would know what to do. And it was such a basic rudimentary statement, but it was such an eye-opener for me. And I said, there's this one subject that I've been cultivating and thinking on. I'm going to start there. And I got on LinkedIn after that trip from Nashville. And I said, my name is Steve Sauceda. I'm starting out as a speaker. This is the subject that I speak on. If you feel that I could add value to your organization, please reach out. This was before having a website or anything, but just giving it a shot. And on the way back from Nashville, I wrote down 10 organizations that I hope to speak for. 5 on the business corporate side, 5 on the faith-based side. By New Year's Eve on that first year, spoke for every single one of them. Spoke for every single one of them. And then, since then, it's been off to the races. And it has been the ride of a lifetime to be able to meet people from all over the country, to have doors open that have extended beyond my wildest dreams. I'm that guy that says, and I mean it, that none of this feels real, and I hope it never does.
That's beautiful. So you have this really interesting context from your professional life as a educator and a leadership in an education space. And then you got this other side, which is you're out talking about that stuff, but other stuff. So what's the thing that most intrigues you right now? Like, what's the thing that captures your curiosity a lot right now?
So I will answer that in a twofold way. The thing that launched me was the topic that I spoke on for iSigma last year, and that they asked me to speak on as a breakout session tomorrow, and that's generational differences. Because it is a topic that transcends industry, because we deal with all of it. You've got 5 generations working side by side today. If we said nothing else other than that, Tom, that could be a source of conflict in the way that people communicate, the way that they prefer to be rewarded, their value systems. And at the end of the day, when you really look at it, we're not that different than we really think we are. It's just a preference in communication styles and rewards and values. So that's what got me launched. That is still my most in-demand topic. But the thing that just I sink my teeth into is the newest topic that I launched at the top of the year called Mind Matters, talking about the stigma of mental health in the workplace. And this is very much near and dear to me, because for all the success that I've been blessed to have, and I am not a one-man show, there is no person, I believe, that has any level of success that got there on their own. Yep. There's someone that believed in them. There's someone that sponsored them. There's someone that was a benefactor, and all of those things. But I had my own bout with mental health in 2017, 2018. Now, prior to this, I never would have let you see me sweat. I was taught and brought up that you don't ever talk about your weakness, because they'll use it against you. Vulnerability, don't do it. And so at the tail end of 2016, early 2017, I began, however you want to put it, an 18-month bout with depression, where I took myself off the road and off the stage because I didn't know if I ever could, if I ever should, or if I ever would speak again. Because what I found, and I'm a big proponent of counseling and therapy, and everyone has their take on it. For me, I found it to be extremely beneficial. What I found that broke was the representative. I would never let you close enough to see the real me. I'd let you see the speaker on stage, you know? And along the time, I had my own radio show and podcast. And as I went through this, I didn't do away with the podcast, but I started talking about my story and my journey. And I actually started getting real with people. And one of the sessions, one of the shows that I did, I talked about Humpty Dumpty, the infamous nursery rhyme. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. You know, all the king's horses, all the king's men couldn't put Humpty back together again. And I related to Humpty. I couldn't put myself back together. No matter what I did, I couldn't do it on my own. And I aired that show, and I had a gentleman reach out to me and leave me a voicemail. And I am one of those elder millennials that will check his voicemail and call people back. And he said, "Steve, I heard your show. Can you call me?" So I called him, said, "Man, I hadn't heard from you in 6 or 7 years, you know, that 6 and 7. He said, "I want to talk to you about your show, specifically about the Humpty segment." And unfortunately, I'm that guy that always puckers when someone's like, "I want to talk to you about something you said," like, "Oh man, did I offend someone? I didn't mean to. I'm sorry." But he said, "My wife and I have been fans of yours for years." I said, "I appreciate that." He said, "Every time we've heard you speak, we've always gotten something out of it." He goes, "I remember one time I leaned over to my wife and I nudged her and I said, 'Man, that guy doesn't struggle with anything. He always seems to have it together and so put together. I don't know how he does it.'" He said, and he goes, "And I always admired you." He said, "But I listened to your radio show and I heard the humility and I heard the vulnerability and the struggle." He said, "And for the first time, I could relate to you and not just admire you." You know, so I started this journey. I started this journey of therapy. I started this journey of counseling, and I started seeing a counselor. In the first 3 months, I went weekly, and we would talk and talk. And after the third month, he asked me a question, and I finally started taking some personal responsibility and accountability for where I was at. And I will never forget this, Tom. It was one of those core memories that we learned from Disney's Inside and Out Pixar movie. Mm-hmm. He stood up. He reached across. Did we lose?
Keep going.
Okay. He reached across the table and he shook my hand. And mind you, we'd been together for 3 months. And he said, "Hi, Steve. It's nice to finally meet you."
Wow.
It's nice to finally meet you. And that was very eye-opening.
That's cool. I'm just going to keep going.
Okay. We lost the camera?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I think it's been going all day. So
no, that's okay.
Yeah, just you. I'm just gonna do this for a second.
Okay.
I'm gonna do this and make you the star. So, okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off there, but
no.
So you're in. You go through a depression.
Yeah.
So the act of becoming real, mm-hmm. right? The act of sort of exposing yourself to that, but exposing yourself to your world,
correct,
from that, puts you out there in a way that allows you now to go back and talk about it.
It does.
So I know you're not talking about it at this conference,
correct?
But like, what's the message you're giving in what's the underlying theme of that?
Absolutely.
Presentation.
Absolutely. So it's kind of twofold. Number one is it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to have a meltdown. Just don't unpack and live there. And the other one, there's several components there, and that is the people around you, even those closest to you, are not mind readers. Because oftentimes I will ask my audiences one of two questions, option A or option B. What's harder for you to say? I'm sorry, or will you help me? 90% of the audiences will say, "Will you help me?" Because we've all been conditioned and taught to ask for help is a sign of weakness. To ask for help is a sign of incompetence. Yeah. Well, if I ask for help, then I'm going to be shown as a fraud, and then they're not going to need me.
Correct.
And the other one is I am a big anti-proponent of fake it till you make it. My big statement is fake it till you make it only works until the faking it breaks you, because you can only hold the facade for so long. This was myself. You know, I was good. You know, someone would ask me, "Steve, how are you?" "I'm good. I'm great." Or if faith-based answers are blessed, highly favored, man, God is good. You say all the things, but you're really struggling on the inside. And then never really let anyone in. And I never tell my audiences that everyone deserves or has earned the right to hear the secrets and the hurts of your heart. I like to use the analogy of a dartboard, that we all have people in every circle within that dartboard. That outer circle is kind of those acquaintances you see, you say hello to. But as you get closer and closer to that bullseye is the smallest one on that dartboard for a reason, because the fewest amount of people are the ones that deserve to hear your heart, to hear the secrets of your heart, but to make sure that you do have someone that you can be real with, someone that you can let your hair down with.
Yeah.
And I find that type of vulnerability has helped me out tremendously. Now, my mom and dad, thankfully, are still alive, and I'm very grateful for that. But they also grew up in a time and in a culture that said, you don't talk about that.
Yeah.
That if you said the word depression, that was a mental institution, that was a straitjacket, that was hopped up on pills, and you were crazy.
Yeah.
And so they loved me through it all. But they were still cautious of, "Son, are you really sure you want to talk about that publicly? Because we don't want people to treat you different. We don't want them to see you different." And that came from a heart of love. But my response was, I hope they do. I hope they do see me differently. I hope they do treat it a little bit differently, that I bleed and I hurt like everybody else, that don't mistake a gift for lacking humanity. That just because I can stand on a stage and command a crowd doesn't mean that I still don't deal with the hardness of life or a job or a relationship or friends. I do. I just have the privilege to be able to talk about it on a stage and on a platform in hopes that it will help someone else or inspire someone else to not be so secluded and live life alone, that I found that isolation is a choice. And when you retreat in isolation, all that you're hearing, you put yourself in an echo chamber. And in an echo chamber, the only voice you're hearing in that kind of state is your own. And 99% of the time, that voice is lying, of saying, you're not good enough, you'll never measure up, no one cares if you're here or not. And so I have found that it has resonated tremendously. When I launched it out this year, my first audience was a group of oil and gas safety professionals. And I told my girlfriend, who's here with me, I said, man, I sure did pick the hardest crowd to launch this in. But what I found afterwards is I had 4 big burly guys waiting for me in the hallway. And I was like, do I run? Do I pretend like I don't speak English all of a sudden? And it was waiting to shake my hand and saying, thank you. That was for me. We need to hear more of this. Because oftentimes, even masculine, it's like, I got to be tough. I got to have it all together. I can't let them see me sweat. And mine is more so, look, man, we all bleed. We all hurt. No matter what your socioeconomic status is, we all need somebody that we can be real with.
Yeah. And in so many ways, the message that, I don't know, I feel like it's even more rampant now than it's been in a long time, is even people who aren't necessarily in depression, just come from the perspective of being broken so much.
Correct.
There's a lot of people who, when you listen inside their heads, are pretty much the hardest voice on themselves. And it's really hard to, think about where do I go? What's this life look like?
Correct.
When I'm a loser? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes it's like in the autism spectrum, it's a spectrum of this world that people are inhabiting in their own heads, from where it gets more intense to where it's less intense, but a lot of the same weird messages are thriving there in many ways.
Well, and Tom, to your point, it might not be depression, but there's anxiety is at an all-time high. Yeah. Stress is at an all-time high. Worry is at an all-time high. Yeah. And we all know, we could talk about this for hours, that social media has been a wonderful tool, but it's also a platform where we put our highlight reels up, and it is constant comparison with every single scroll. How is Tom going on his 4th vacation this year, and I hate my cubicle? That's great for Tom, but do you also know, is Tom leveraged beyond his gourd to be able to go on these vacations? I'm not saying you are, but we never know the true story behind a post.
No, never do. Mm-mm. So you're here for a couple of days. If somebody never got to hear what you had to say in this next few days, and they're only coming in via the interwebs, either YouTube or on the podcast channel for iSigma, if you could give them one tiny message, no matter where they are, you didn't know where they are, but you could give them one message of hope, encouragement, something. What would you say to them? What's the thing that you need to say?
I believe there is a God-given purpose and gift inside of every single person walking the earth today. And I believe that the wealthiest place on earth is not the oil fields of the Middle East. It is not Fort Knox. It is not Elon Musk's bank account, but it is the graveyard, because of how much purpose and potential went to the grave with people out of fear or discouragement or lack of encouragement, that they died with the what if instead of why not, And so I'm the guy that says, go for it. That thing that is in you, there's a reason that it is in you, and the world needs it. While maybe you don't go sell out Madison Square Garden, but you sure can change a life in your local hometown by being kind to somebody. I will tell you this as we begin to wind down. During the pandemic, hard to believe that was 6 years ago, Tom. It feels like 19 lifetimes ago. Mm-hmm. We were in the grocery store, and I don't say this as a political statement, but I simply say, I think I feel safe in saying that we lost our collective minds. We didn't know which way was up, down, left, or right, what was real, what was not, who do we listen to, mask up, mask down, vaccine or not. It was all over the place. And different pockets of the country felt different ways about it. There were some that say, I'll comply. I don't want to be part of the problem. The others said, over my dead body will I comply with anything. So I say all that to say, I was in the grocery store where I live, and you had arrows in the grocery store in the aisles of you walk this way, you walk that way. Some complied, some didn't. And I saw a gentleman that I had recognized. And I said, hey, buddy, how you doing? You know? And I was eating my feelings. There was cookies and ice cream and everything in there because the world had gone nuts. And he looked at me, Tom, with all the confidence in the world. He said, Steve, I am doing fantastic. I am doing amazing. So I pulled my little cart of comfort food over to the side, and I said, what's the secret? He said, what do you mean? I said, what have you been doing the past 6 to 8 months to stand here and say, I'm doing fantastic and I'm doing amazing and you're thriving? I said, buddy, give me your number. I'll Apple Pay you. I'll Venmo you for a therapy session right here. What's the secret? And I was 100% serious. And I saw his eyes well up with tears. He said, Steve, I'm not doing wonderful. I'm not doing amazing. And he said, my wife and I fight every single day where I wonder if we're even going to make it. He said, my kids got transitioned to online school. They sent them home with an iPad. He said, my wife and I have no idea how to help them. He goes, I'm afraid they won't pass. He said, and I got wind that my company's about to go through another round of cuts, and I'm afraid I'm going to be on it. And Tom, for the next 20 minutes, I didn't offer him a scripture. I didn't offer him an Instagram quote or a Pinterest inspirational, nothing. All I did was listen. Mm-hmm. That's all I did. And afterwards, he'd kind of composed himself. I said, how do you feel? He said, better. I said, I want to ask you again, how you doing? He said, I'm not okay today, but I believe I will be. I said, doesn't that feel better than I'm great, I'm fantastic? He said, Steve, it does. He said, but how many people actually take the time to stop and listen with intentionality and to actually care? You know, and again, I don't think I'm a saint. I don't think I'm a hero. Oftentimes I'm running through myself, but I'm glad that I stopped in that moment to care and to listen. And what I would say to anyone who would watch or would listen, that I believe that in our life and in our business, the answer to a better life lies on our face. And that is the ratio of 2 to 1, that we were created with 2 ears and 1 mouth, which means that we were designed to listen twice as much as we talk. And oftentimes we flip it, myself included. We talk twice as much as we listen. But oftentimes I don't think that people always need an answer. They just need a listening ear that says you care.
Beautiful. Well, that's a great way to end. Steve, thank you for being with us. Thank you for all you're bringing to our community in this conference, and continued success in all the cool stuff you're doing.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.